Hello everybody, Jake, your resident content cowboy here. Yeehaw, it's Monday. On Mondays, we do tier lists live this time. And on Wednesdays, we wear pink.
That is so fetch.
Gretchen, stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not going to happen.
Today, we are taking a look at your allies inside of Pokemon UNITE. I'm live here on Twitch and YouTube and TikTok, and we're going to be ranking where you think your ally of this Pokemon is. The reason I'm bringing this up is earlier I had a Zarina game, and this Zarina did like 0 damage. It was like, it's not that they were not trying. I just think Zarina can be a real hard one, and they did like 11,000 damage, and I thought, you know what, it would be a good time to rank your random allies inside of Pokemon UNITE. So that's what we're gonna do here. I'm gonna be looking at the chat, but I'm also gonna be giving my thoughts. Cinderace. Oh, where's my head? I have to tell you about our tiers. We have our God tier. Only one Pokemon can be in our God tier. We're not frickin' Norse around here. We have our S tier. These are allies that are like legit amazing. We have our A tier. Always good. You know what? I'm calling it the always good tier. Always solid. We have our B tier. Sorry everybody that's here live. So annoying. Ugh, so annoying. Still got the B tier. Hate that. We have our C tier. These are allies that are oftentimes underwhelming. I would say our B tier is just going to be allies that are like fine. They're fine, right? And then we have our D tier, or as we call it, the Decidueye Memorial tier, a tier named after Decidueye when Decidueye was bad enough to be one of the worst Pokemon in the game, and now they are memorialized with our D tier. These are allies that are full-on grief. Like, for the most part, you hate seeing this on your team. We're just gonna go in order right here. I'm gonna start with Cinderace. I think Cinderace is a C tier ally. It's close to D tier. And the reason Cinderace is so bad is because Cinderace is a full-on ripper all the time. Like, no matter what you do, whether you're ahead or behind, Cinderace is going to rip Rayquaza, and that is going to be very frustrating. The only silver lining to Cinderace is that you know what Cinderace is going to do. Like, truly, I know what it's going to do every time. So I expect it at this point. Oh, they could be Bush Cinderace. That's true. I forgot about that. They could like Reddit Bush us. But I think for the most part, Cinder's like only thing is just like holding the A button or B button at Rayquaza. I think they're a pretty underwhelming ally. Garchomp? I'm going to go out on a limb. I think Garchomp is kind of an A tier ally. I'm actually usually happy to have Garchomps on my team, and I feel like it's not played often, and the Garchomps I see are actually pretty good. We got A's and B's in the chat. B, in your opinion, says Big Pimpin'. I feel like almost every Garchomp I have on my team is pretty good. Now, to be fair, I'm spending all my time these days like in master rank, and I don't climb rank anymore, right? I've done that a bunch of times. I have my account that's doing it free to pay this season, but in general, I'm not seeing bad Garchomps. I'm actually seeing pretty good Garchomps in most all my games, and I'm usually pretty stoked to have a Garchomp on my team. Gengar. Gengar is usually very low, in my opinion. I feel like enemy Gengars, for some reason, can be good. I feel like Gengar is one of the lowest. It's either D or C for me, for sure. I never have good Gengars on my team. Yeah, the chat's saying S or D. That's kind of true. And it's also kind of suggestive. I feel like I almost never have a good Gengar. I think almost never. And it's because it's a really high skill Pokemon, right? And it's countered by a lot of things. I would say Gengar is one of the least consistent allies. Someone could make an argument that it would be C, but you'd have to tell me who's worse than this, because there aren't a ton worse than this. Yeah. Cram, I feel like, is B. I feel like Cram's B, sometimes even A. You don't see a lot of Crams. They're usually pretty decent, and their Unite move's impactful. I would say either A or B. B feels pretty fair to me, because I also don't always see them being like the craziest, most impactful Pokemon. We got a lot of C's in the chat. Interesting. But I do feel like I see this Pokemon do decently well. Like, I'm not... I feel like Cram is rarely a liability, but also rarely a top tier choice. And for that reason, I feel like it's kind of fairly sitting right there in the B tier for me. A lot of C's in the chat, though. A lot of people saying C. A9, I feel like A9's pretty good. I think A9's solid. I rarely see a bad A9. They're easy to do well with, right? From time to time, you'll see one that doesn't even know how to throw its combo. But I feel like most A9 is pretty good. Some of the chat's saying like B right now. I see some people. I don't know. You're saying your A9s don't know how to Blizzard combo. I think A is pretty fair for me. I feel like they're usually pretty good. Dazzling Gleam Aurora Veil build is nice, says the chat. So we got like a lot of compliments for A9. And you know what the thing is? You'll notice, I think, with some of this is Pokemon that are good in lane are often good allies. And Pokemon that are bad in lane are often bad allies. Wiggly, I feel like, is pretty solid. I will say, I think I've never seen a Wiggly use its Unite move well. Like, I think it's probably B. Because I don't think I ever see Wiggly use good Unites. That's, I think, the thing for me is, like, they're amazing in lane. They're usually pretty solid, and they're around a lot of, like, the team fights. But I don't think I ever see Wiggly use a good Unite move. And I think that's one of the toughest things about it. Machamp is inconsistent, and I'll say I often feel like my Machamps let me down. I don't think it's D tier for me, but I think they're often playing submission. They don't know how it works, and they miss their Unite move. That's what I'm feeling. We have some like D tier, D's Machamps in the chat. I feel like Machamp just does not like. They don't do a great job. They don't. I would really like to see what the chat thinks about Absol. What does the chat think about Absol? I'm very curious right now. I don't want to say my answer. We've got a D in the chat for Absol. We got a C in the chat for Absol. I'm interested to see everyone's thoughts. A, S, A, B, C, B. It's all over the place, really. S or C, better than Gengar. C or B. D, C, hit or miss. Yeah. C or mid B, good and low elo. You know, the interesting thing is, I feel like I don't see Absol a ton, but I actually think it's pretty good when I do see it. However, you're not wrong that it's hit or miss, right? I would say you're definitely not wrong that it's hit or miss. I could see an argument for B, but a lot of the chat thinks it's low, so I could definitely see it in the C tier. I actually think Absol does a little better, though, than I see it some of the Pokemon. But yeah, I could see it being like B, but a lot of the chat's thinking lower. I don't know. I think I'm going to put it B, honestly. I think it's pretty good, oftentimes as an ally, which is weird. Slowbro, I think, is an S tier. I think Slowbro is an S tier ally. One of the things about Slowbro is it's almost, except for its Unite, which is like player dependent. There's not much you can do. It's really hard to have a bad Slowbro. So its Unite move will be a heartbreaker for you. Mark says B, they don't know how to water gun secure. I think, yeah, and Custard Cakes is saying this in the chat. I think Slowbro is hard to get wrong. They're just good no matter what's going on. Okay, all right. Mr. Mime. This might be my most controversial of the tier list. I don't know. I think Mr. Mime is almost always good. Like, almost always good. I think Mr. Mime is, like, truly almost always good. Almost no one plays it, and good mimes are almost always good. Now, I'm curious what everyone else is like, what they all see. I feel like mimes are almost always really solid allies. A lot of people are saying A in the chat. I could see an A. A seems fair to me. That's literally the always good tier. That's literally what the tier is named. So I actually see it. Pajama Salad says they're never with the team. That's interesting. That is interesting. I don't know that I've noticed a lot of mimes like being super random, but for me, I feel like the mimes that I see in game are actually always really good. Pretty solid. Venusaur is probably C tier for me. Venusaur is really hit and miss. Most of them cannot hit beams. Most of them don't know how to secure. I feel like Venu is really inconsistent from allies. Venu is a good Pokemon, but I feel like my ally Venus are super inconsistent. We got a lot of Bs in the chat. It's kind of fair. I feel like for me, they're under B. I just feel like they can't. They have a job and they don't seem to do their job well. Like they don't seem to like hit their beams consistently. Like they have like fully open objectives like ready for them on a silver platter and they don't even fire. Like, I don't know. For me, I feel like Venus are disappointing for sure. Lucarios are, to be honest, I very, very rarely see Lucarios these days. My first thought is B. I feel like when I see them, they're not bad, but they're also not the Lucario of old. They're like not super impactful. Yeah, we got a lot of Bs in the chat too. I just feel like they do it for stacks a lot, but they're the one Pokemon that can kind of like get away with it, you know? And I just feel like I never see Lucario. Like of almost all the Pokemon on this list, there are a few you never see. I never see Lucario. Truly. Talonflame, I think, is one of the worst allies in the game. I love Talon. I fancy myself a pretty good Talon. I have to be honest. Like I'm trying not tooting my own horn here, but like, toot, what's up? I feel like Talon's one of the worst allies you could ever have. It's like you can create a tier for it. This can be renamed the Talonflame Memorial tier. Like truly, some of the worst allies you're ever gonna get in Pokemon Unite are Talonflame. It's just, I mean, people do not know how to play this Pokemon. Truly. Eldegoss. S. Got 2 S's in the name. You can add a third one. I mean, I think Eldegoss is almost always good. Almost always. Even if they're kind of bad, they're almost always good. I feel like even as a healer, they're really consistent. They're a high one for me. They're like almost always a great ally. Almost always. Greninja. I don't know what else to say. I don't know what else to say. These kids think they're frickin' ninjas out here. Greninja is like one of the most disappointing Pokemon you're ever gonna have on your team. It's in the right hands, this Pokemon is godlike. In all of your allies' hands, you wish they picked anything else, like anything else. Yeah. Crustle. Crustal's probably an A tier for me. It used to be like full on D tier, but now I think Crustal's probably like an A, maybe a B, but it's really solid. It's A or B. Like it's a really good ally lately. You can get griefed a little with Rock Tomb, but now we're just talking about like what a griefer is gonna do, right? I think Crustal's, now that people know how to play Crustle and it's gotten its buffs, I actually think it's always a really solid ally. Snorlax for me is kind of one rung under Crustle, I will say. I think more often than not, maybe this is just me, more often than not, I see Snorlax running Flail when you expect it to be a tank. And I think a lot of people don't know how to block with it or position with it very well. But you do get decent allies. We have a lot of C's in the chat, actually. I think it's low B for me. It's not bad. I think it's low B. We got Charizard. Is Charizard C or D? It might be C, but it's really rough. Charizard can be really rough. And the biggest thing about Charizard is like the epitome of this person does not know how to farm and is always behind in level. Which is weird because it's such a good Pokemon at farming. It's like so good at farming. You always are a high level if you play Char. But for some reason, allies have no idea how to play this. I would say it's C for me. I'm going to keep it C. Pikachus are A. I think Pikachus are almost always good. Almost always. It's hard to be bad. They have their Unite moves all the time. Volt Tackle, Electro Ball's easy. They're good in lane. I think Pikachus are oftentimes really good allies. You get a weird one here or there, but that's true of any Pokemon. I feel like Pikachus are often good. Yeah, it's got sure hit moves. They're usually pretty good. Zeraora is probably C for me. It's not fully D, and I can't say it's consistent enough to be B. I feel like it's more often than not, I'm underwhelmed by Zera. More often than not, I'm underwhelmed. And I feel like you can often get a Zera that's kind of like wild charge, and they literally just jump into the enemy face and get KO'd over and over again. Then you get that one game where you get a wild charge Zera and they do 19 KOs. You're like, why is there no consistency with this Pokemon at all? That's just speedsters. Gardevoir, probably C tier for me. I often find Guardies are not good and they miss their Unites a lot. They're bad in lane and they don't know how to secure. A lot of chat saying B though. We got a ton of Bs in the chat. A lot of Bs. Everyone's saying B. Interesting. For me, I feel like Guardy is actually pretty underwhelming most of the time. A lot of the chat's saying B. Really? Okay. All right. I'm gonna defer to the chat on this one. I'm gonna move it up one. Yeah, and this is a Pokemon ally tier list. This is what your teammate is doing, not like where they are inside the game, right? Guardy's a good Pokemon. Blissey, I think is S, probably. S or A, one of the two. Maybe A. Maybe it's closer to A, actually. I don't think it's as consistent as the others in S, but it's like very high up there. It's really hard to have a bad Blissey, you know? I think A or almost S. It's like almost S, like high A. Blastoise. So here, this is a weird one. I feel like Blastoise is too good for how inconsistent it is, but it's still Blastoise, and I'm gonna put it B. I understand that this Pokemon is S tier, but I don't feel like my ally Blastoise are often S tier. I really don't. I feel like they are taking an S tier Pokemon and they are like absolutely fumbling the ball with an S tier Pokemon. That's what I feel like. Yeah, I think it's, for me, it's B. I feel like I see a lot of rough Blastoise play, you know? Mamoswine, honestly, usually quite good. They can like run into the not evolve thing. I'm going to put it B just because of its evolution line. Because what happens is you will get Mamoswines that don't evolve. Literally, like Limbo in the chat, we see Pillow-Swine at level 8 with 2 minutes left. It's one of the only Pokemon that I feel like still sits here. But early game, I think they're quite good. Almost all of them are quite good. It's hard to be bad with it. It has a range stun, basically. I'm gonna put it B. It's higher B than the rest of these defenders, for whatever that's worth, I would say. Sylveon is pretty good. I would say Sylveon's pretty good. It's like a B or an A. It's not like I don't know. I think it's probably like high B. It's not like amazing, but it's hard to be super bad with it too. So it's rarely that bad. Greedon, I would say, is probably D. I would be open to hear any arguments, but I think it's your ally Greedons are absurd. Someone give it a T. someone give it a new tier. Yeah, someone like give it the T tier. I think it's like really rough. Yeah, Decidueye is probably here, and you could probably call this the Decidueye Memorial tier. I think Decidueye players are some of the worst players in the game. I recently found out that you get Decidueye for free, and like at the start of the game now, and now I'm understanding why there are so many unskilled Decidueye players, because they're like coming up. I really don't know what's going on. You will get this Pokemon to unite every Rayquaza. They will never secure. I don't know. I feel like I can't, and they all play Razor Leaf when you wish they were Spirit Shackle. Like I can't think of a more disappointing ally than Decidueye. Like, there are very few, and they're all hanging out in our Decidueye Memorial tier. Zarina. I won't say it's D tier, but man, because I just had an experience with it earlier. It might be D tier, honestly. Well, it might be D tier. Zarina's really bad. Like, most allies are really bad. One ally out of, like, 10 is, like, Mame. They're cracked on it. They're, like, a pro player. Every other Zarina is absolute tragedy. Absolute tragedy. Boy, I could see putting it D. Yeah, we have in the chat Hot Cheeto Girl. I paired with the Zarina the other week. The only reason you remember it is because it was actually a good Zarina. You never see that. I'm gonna put it high D. I honestly think they're terrible allies. Dragonite is underwhelming. Probably C, like high C. It could be B. I just feel like they're not, like, as a Pokemon, they're great at times. I just feel like my ally Dragonites are never doing much. I feel like, yeah, I feel like C. Yeah, they're pretty underwhelming. Tree is probably A. I'd hear an argument for Tree being S. I could see it. I think Trevenant's one of the better ones. We got some B's in the chat. I feel like Trevs are so good. Trevs are often really good. I gotta put it at least A. One of the better Pokemon. One of the better ones. I think Tree is almost always good. Yeah, I think it's almost always good on your team. Aegislash is so inconsistent. I can't put it D tier, but I have to put it C tier. It's like no one knows how to play this Pokemon. Every once in a while you get someone who does. But for the most part, nobody knows what's going on with Aegislash. For sure. I feel like Hoopas are pretty good. I feel like Hoopas are normally... they're pretty solid. I'd probably say A, actually. I think most players who play Hoopa are pretty good at it. Yeah. I often am like... Some people are saying C for Hoopa. I don't know. I feel like Hoopas are usually pretty solid. Every Hoopa that I get, like, they know when to use their Unites. They know when to Hyperspace Hole. I think, yeah, Hoopa suffers more from having bad teammates than bad Hoopas. But a lot of people are... We've got, like, people, like, high and low with this. I actually find Hoopas to be pretty good allies. But not all the time. For sure. Duraludon. You never see... This is the hardest thing. No one ever plays this Pokemon. It's right there with Cinderace. Like, I know what it's going to do. Oh, wait. It has Flash Cannon. I have to put a D tier. Yeah, it's D tier for me. Flash Cannon Duraludon is one of the most disappointing allies you're ever going to have in your life. Yeah, it's just so... It's so sad. It's like, it's unbelievably sad, and for some reason every Duraludon wants to play Flash Cannon. So yeah, I have to put it D tier. Azumarill actually isn't too bad. It's not too great either. I'd say it's probably B, like hanging out here with Lucario. They're not bad. They're usually like not crazy. I think B is pretty fair, you know? B is fair. Yeah. Espeon, almost always good? I think almost always good for Espeon. I rarely have bad ones. Espeon's really, really solid. Like, they can be kind of bad, but they get their moves so fast, you know? I think A is pretty fair for this Pokemon. Really solid. Delphox, I also think is pretty good. It's either high B or low A. Usually Delphox is solid, and their Unite move has such a low cooldown that it's kind of hard to be upset even when they kind of botch it, you know? It's like high B, low A. But you know what? They do get, like, rocked early. They get really hurt early. I'm going to put it high B, because they have, like, such a abysmal start to the game, but usually I think they're pretty good. Glaceon, probably not S, but A. Like, I don't know. It's like almost an impossible Pokemon to do bad on. right? You can't, like, how do you play this poorly? It's like the simplest Pokemon in the game to do well on. I feel like it's probably A. I think A is fair. Buzzwole. I think most Buzzwoles are quite good. But, you know, I don't know what it's going to be like low tier. I think most Buzzwoles are actually pretty dang good. Because they understand what's going on with it. It's either A or S. And it's so good, right? Yeah, it's too OP to be bad. I agree. I don't think my ally Buzzwoles are often god tier, but I do think they're very, very good. Like Leech Life might leave it A. This tier list, Dan, is your ally, like what your ally is like. Tyranitar, D? I mean, probably D tier, I would say. Some of the worst allies you're ever going to have are Tyranitars. They just don't know how to farm. It's like they have no idea how to farm. I think that's a big problem. If they knew how to farm, it would be totally different. I think most T-Tars are really bad. Really, really bad. I would say most Mews are actually really good. I would say most Mews are probably A. I rarely have problems with Mew. I think Mew's probably like an A tier choice. Most Mews. Bird is... It's either B or C. I don't see people use Dodrio poorly often. But you don't see people use it often. It's either B or C, I think. A lot of chat's saying C. I can't really argue it. I rarely see it. I don't see too many bad ones, though, when I do see it. I'm going to keep it B, honestly. I'm going to keep it B. Scissor. My personal take is that scissors are some of the worst allies I ever have. Personally. But that doesn't mean that's how it is in the game. I think more reasonably, this is a C tier choice that people are probably doing better at now. A lot better. But for the longest time, I would say, for me personally, this has like been one of my worst allies. Clefable, S tier. Hard to be bad with it. They know their job. Sometimes you get like a Draining Kiss, Griefer. But I would say it's clearly an S tier Pokemon. Zoroark, wildly inconsistent. Either the most cracked thing ever, or like has no idea what they're doing. For that reason, I have to put Zoroark in C tier. Not that like literally, you will get the best Zoroark ever or the worst. And if something is super inconsistent, I can't even say it's like B. I think it's C for me. Sableye is probably like grief tier D. Sadly enough, most Sableyes are going to be like full on. I'm going to shrink my cam here. I'm small. I think most Sableyes are not good. They are not good at all. Urshifu is probably C. I think most people are not good with Urshifu. You don't see a lot of it, to be fair. But I don't see a lot of good Urshifus. Yeah. Dragapult, I would say, is B right now. Or like middle of the road B. Ever since its buffs, Dragapult's been pretty B. Yeah. It could be a lot better. You expect it to be better. But I think they're solid. Comfey is probably A. It's almost hard to not be A with it. The biggest problem with Comfey is they're always attached to one Pokemon. But for what they do, like, I'd never see a Comfey who doesn't know how to just like attach to something. They do it all game. Zacian is usually bad, honestly, for how good that Pokemon is. I think Zacian's usually bad. But that Pokemon is so good. And you don't see it much anymore with like with bans and EX and stuff. Like I almost never see it. But I think Zacian's actually usually not played well, I would have to say. Goodra, almost always an underwhelming ally. A really good Pokemon, but not a great ally. I'd say like C. C for me on Goodra. It's like, it's okay. Let me adjust this a little bit so you guys can see that better. Yeah, it's okay. Laprases are pretty good. I would say Laprases are like B for me. Like a solid one. They're not amazing and they're not like terrible either. Yeah. Candle is fine. Does anyone think Candle's terrible? I don't think it's terrible. I think it's usually fine. It's like pretty good. It's like mid. Like kind of like decent. Like decent with some of these attackers. I think it's pretty decent. I'm never like pissed at my Candle. Umbreons, usually good allies. Umbreon's like usually pretty dang good actually as an ally. They might be they get close to the S tier, I think. They get close. Some people are saying S. A lot of S's actually. I could see it being like low S tier. I really could. Leafeon is mid. Not as bad as some of the other speedsters, but kind of mid. It's either like I feel like it's middle of the road B, and I think it's just because there are not enough of them carry. Some people are saying high B, some people think A or S. Really, I think more often than not, I don't see it like crush. I think it's just speedsters in general. Inteleon for me is the tough thing is like the enemy Inteleons are really good, it feels like, and your ally Inteleons miss every single snipe shot. B seems like low B seems fair, but also C is kind of fair. I feel like most players are not good on this Pokemon. I think I'm going to put it C, guys. I just think most players are not good. Mewtwo, for the sake of it, I don't know what to say. Mewtwo X might be some of the worst players I've ever seen in Pokemon Unite. They're like they're fully confused. They have no idea what's happening. Mewtwo Y is the same thing, but it's dumber. It's like a dumber Pokemon, so I'd put it like C. Mewtwo's are like truly, you'll never be more disappointed than a Mewtwo ally. They have no clue what's happening. Blazikens are usually decent. I actually think Blazikens are usually pretty good. Not always good, but like solid, like high B, I would say. But I think Blaziken's pretty good. Like high B, low A. They're usually solid allies, I've found. Mimikyu, on the other hand, I feel like is less consistent. Like they're probably low B for me. People saying actually Mimikyu's higher, like closer to A. Yeah, I don't find Mimikyus to be like that amazing, but I also don't find them to be that terrible. I think they're like middle of the road for me. Water bears are, you never see this Pokemon anymore, so it's like really weird, right? I don't even know. I don't ever see it. I think players who play it are actually not terrible, but the Pokemon is just rough right now. It's like truly non-existent. I don't know if I've had one on my team this season. It's a really hard one to rank. I think just because it's not good right now, I'm going to put it like low C, but... Scyther, I feel like, is better than Scizor. Not like amazing, but I usually have way better Scythers than Scizors. I'd say it's closer to B. Usually people who play Scyther kind of know what's up a little bit more. I'd say it's like middle of the road B, like kind of here with Absol. Yeah. Meowscarada is also B. It should be way higher, because it's so good. But Meowscarada is like the new Mewtwo, it feels like. Everyone knows it's kind of dummy, and they just like rip things apart with it. They just like jump in, Night Slash, Unite move. Like they don't have to do too much, you know? So for that reason, I feel like more often than not, they're going to be okay. Metagross players, I feel like, are actually quite good. You'll get the odd one who has no idea how to evolve, but I actually think Metagross is pretty good, like low A. Usually Metagross players know what they're doing. I don't see too many that have no idea like how the game, like I feel like all of them seem to know how their moves work, honestly. Maybe not like right on release, of course, but I don't see a ton of Metagross. When I do see it, I think they're pretty good. Gyarados, wildly inconsistent. If it wasn't for recent buffs, they would be D. I'm going to put them like high C right now. Some Gyarados players are great, and I think Gyarados is really good. I love it. But this Pokemon is fully like great or awful. It's so tough. So tough. And Miraidon, I gotta be honest, I think Miraidon's not good. It's not like D tier, but I think it's pretty low. I would say Miraidon is like C tier allies. I don't really see anybody playing good Miraidon. It's probably like hanging out here, like right in here. It's honestly another EX Pokemon, like hanging out with Mewtwo Y. You think a lot of people, you think A, honestly, really? I don't see too many good Miraidons. But to be fair, like, I also don't see a lot of Miraidons right now. I think your ally Miraidon is often not it. I'm never like vibing in a match and being like, dang, our Miraidon's cleaning up. Like, I never feel like that. I feel like this Pokemon is just never doing it. So, people are sleeping on Miraidon. You can't actually. It creates that zone where sleep moves don't work. But I think Miraidon as a Pokemon is very good. I just think your ally Miraidons are not so good. So now it's time to pick a God tier, everybody. Our God tier Pokemon. I think it's LD. It could be Clefable. I think it might be LD. I honestly think LDs are almost always good allies. Almost always. I'm going Eldegoss. That's where my heart is. Let me know what you think in the comments, of course. Thank you, everyone who was here live. If you were here live, please let me know what you think I got right, what I got wrong. Say hi on the video. If you were not here live, let me know what you think. These are your allies inside of Pokemon Unite. Where do you think they, stack up? Like, what are you excited to see on your team? What are you not excited to see on your team? Lots of hi YouTubes in the chat. Thank you all very much. I will see you all very soon. Do we have a balance patch? Who knows? I love you. See you next time.